a sunshiny afternoon, and all at once, boom, there's one standing across the creek. So things started happening dramatically fast.
Bigfoot exhibits nocturnal behavior.
It looks to be like a large primate.
Hardcore Bigfoot people are cult members.
Everyone thinks the Patterson-Gimlin film is the whole story. It's not even close.
What the crap?
Bob Gimlin, the quiet horseman who was there, has held back crucial details for over 50 years. Details that change everything. It's not just about a creature in the woods, it's about a promise made to a dying friend, the strange behavior of the animal that the camera didn't capture, and a personal secret Gimlin swore he would take to his final resting place. Now, for the first time, the complete unfiltered truth is coming out, and it will shake the very foundation of the Bigfoot legend. 60 seconds that created a legend. It all started on a crisp October morning in 1967. It's funny when you think about it, how a day that begins so ordinary can end up in history books. Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson weren't looking for fame. They were just two rugged outdoorsmen riding on horseback through the Six Rivers National Forest in Northern California. This was a place of vast stillness, a sprawling wilderness covering over 1 million acres. Their plan was simple, to search for the creature Patterson was obsessed with, the legendary Sasquatch. Patterson was the driver of the mission. He had the passion, the theories, and a 16mm camera he was ready to use at a moment's notice. Gimlin was the seasoned tracker, the steady hand, bringing his knowledge of the woods and a healthy dose of skepticism. They were following the dried-up bed of Bluff Creek, a remote and rugged landscape carved by water and time. The air was cool, the only sounds being the clip-clop of their horses' hooves on the rocky ground. Then it happened. Without warning, Patterson's horse panicked. It bucked violently, throwing its head back, its eyes wide with a primal fear. Gimlin struggled to control his own mount as they rounded a bend. And there it was. Standing not more than 100 feet away was a creature that shouldn't exist. It was massive, easily standing between 6 and 7 feet tall, covered from head to toe in thick, dark hair. It moved with a strange, fluid grace like a huge, hairy human being, as Gimlin would later describe. This was no bear. It was walking on 2 legs. For a few heart-stopping seconds, nobody moved. Man and beast locked in a moment of mutual disbelief. The creature turned its head, its dark eyes meeting theirs with a look of what Gimlin felt was utter disdain, almost like it was annoyed by their presence. It wasn't scared, it wasn't aggressive, it was just there. As Patterson scrambled to get off his spooked horse, grabbing his camera from a saddlebag, the creature began to walk away. It didn't run. It moved with a slow, deliberate stroll, its powerful muscles flexing under its hairy hide. It was this casual, unhurried gait that would become one of the most analyzed and debated details of the entire event. As the creature walked, it made a slight turn of its shoulders and head, looking back at them one last time. That iconic glance over the shoulder, a single moment of seeming curiosity, would be burned into the public consciousness forever. This wasn't just a sighting, it was an encounter that would change their lives and the world of cryptozoology forever. The shaky footage captured a legend, but Gimlin saw something the camera missed. The 60 seconds of film were in the can, but the story was far from over. In fact, for Bob Gimlin, the hardest part was just beginning. It's one thing to see something unbelievable, but it's another thing entirely to convince the world. In the days and weeks that followed, the film exploded. Some experts hailed it as undeniable proof, while a chorus of skeptics immediately branded it a hoax. People from all over the world wanted a piece of the story. But amid the chaos, a private drama was unfolding between the two witnesses. Roger Patterson, who had been the passionate believer, became the film's biggest promoter. Gimlin, however, retreated. He was a simple, honest man, uncomfortable with the spotlight and the ridicule that came with it. Things got complicated. Patterson, driven by his quest, had made some questionable choices in his past. He owed people money, and this incredible footage was seen by some as his golden ticket. Whispers of a hoax grew louder, and many of those whispers centered on Patterson's character. Gimlin found himself defending not just the film, but his friend. He had vouched for Patterson, and now his own reputation was on the line. The pressure was immense. He was just a working man, a rancher, and suddenly he was at the center of a global debate with his word as his only defense. It took a toll on his family, his work, and his peace of mind. The true weight of his burden, however, was cemented a few years later. Roger Patterson was diagnosed with cancer. As he lay on his deathbed in 1972, just 5 years after the filming, he and Gimlin had one last crucial conversation. With what little strength he had left, Patterson made Gimlin promise him something. He made him swear that he would never, ever back down from their story. He asked him to carry the torch, to keep telling the truth of what they saw that day no matter what. Gimlin, looking his dying friend in the eye, gave his word. He had no idea at the time that this deathbed promise would become a 50-year-long burden, a solemn vow that would force him to endure endless accusations and scrutiny long after Patterson was gone. He was no longer just a witness. He was the sole keeper of a controversial flame. This solemn promise would be tested in ways Gimlin could never foresee. Deconstructing a legend. As the years turned into decades, the Patterson-Gimlin film became the most scrutinized piece of footage in history. You have to get this. Every single one of the 952 frames was picked apart by believers and debunkers alike. The central question was simple. Was this a genuine, unknown primate or a man in a costume? The skeptics came out in full force. They argued that the creature's walk was too human, that its proportions were all wrong. One of the most common claims was that it was just a man named Bob Hieronymus, wearing a modified gorilla suit. For a while, that story gained a lot of traction, with people pointing to it as the final nail in the coffin of the Bigfoot legend. But then, the scientists stepped in and the story got a whole lot weirder. Experts in biomechanics and primate anatomy started analyzing the film, and what they found was stunning. They pointed out that the creature's walk, known as a compliant gait, was incredibly difficult for a human to replicate. The subject in the film bent its knees and sank its body with each step, a motion that conserves energy and is common in animals that walk long distances, but not in humans. Furthermore, detailed analysis revealed visible muscle flexion. When the creature, nicknamed Patty, moved her arm, you could see the trapezius and deltoid muscles ripple under the skin. A costume from 1967, a time before modern special effects, simply couldn't do that. The sheer size of the creature was another massive point of contention. Careful measurements based on the size of the surrounding trees and the footprints left at the scene put the creature's height at well over 6.5 feet, and its weight was estimated to be around 700 pounds. The footprints themselves were a staggering 14.5 inches long. Forensics experts noted the presence of a mid-tarsal break, a flexibility in the middle of the foot found in apes but not in humans. No simple costume could fake that kind of anatomical detail, so if it wasn't a man in a suit, what was it? The scientific evidence began to paint a picture that was, for many, more unbelievable than a hoax. It pointed to a real, living, breathing animal, an unknown primate with a unique anatomy that walked out of the forest and into history. The evidence was compelling, but one man's confession threatened to undo it all. Just when the scientific evidence was tilting the scales in favor of the film's authenticity, a bombshell dropped. A man named Philip Morris, a costume maker from North Carolina, came forward with a stunning claim. He had sold the gorilla suit to Roger Patterson in 1967. The story was perfect. It seemed to explain everything. The media ran with it, and for many, this was the final word. The great Bigfoot mystery had been solved. It was all just a cheap trick. Morris described the suit in detail, explaining how he'd crafted it, and his story was amplified by a man named Bob Hieronymus, who claimed he was the one who wore the suit for the filming. The case, it seemed, was closed. But it's funny how a story that sounds too good to be true often is. When investigators and researchers started digging into these claims, the entire narrative began to fall apart. For one, Philip Morris's timeline was inconsistent. He couldn't provide any receipts, shipping records, or credible witnesses to back up his story of selling the suit to Patterson. When asked to produce a similar suit as proof, what he came up with looked nothing like the creature in the film. The proportions were wrong, the fur was different, and it lacked any of the subtle, lifelike qualities seen in the footage. It was a classic gorilla suit, not the unique bipedal creature from Bluff Creek. Then there was Bob Hieronymus, the man who claimed he was Patty. His story was even more shaky. He failed multiple polygraph tests when questioned about his involvement. His physical measurements didn't match the creature in the film. He was shorter and had a different build. Furthermore, his description of the events on the day of the filming contradicted the known facts in Bob Gimlin's consistent testimony. It became clear that the so-called confession was full of holes. Why would these men make it all up? Some researchers believe it was for a moment of fame, a chance to be written into history. Whatever their motives, their stories, once seen as the final answer, became just another layer of mystery. The confession that was supposed to end the debate only ended up strengthening the film's credibility by showing how easily a compelling lie could be debunked with careful investigation. With the hoax story debunked, all eyes turned back to the one man left standing, the paranormal primate. With the hoax theories crumbling under scrutiny, the debate usually snaps back to a simple question: ape or not? But what if that question is completely wrong? What if the creature captured on film wasn't just an undiscovered primate, but something far stranger, something that defies our understanding of the natural world? This is where the story of the Patterson-Gimlin film takes a sharp turn from cryptozoology into the realm of the truly bizarre, and you see, many researchers believe the key lies in the creature's behavior. Why didn't it run? A 700-pound animal surprised by two men on horseback should have reacted with aggression or immediate flight. Yet Patty simply walked away, calm and unhurried, with a look of what Bob Gimlin described as disdain. This strange lack of fear has opened the door to some mind-bending theories. One of the most compelling and frankly chilling ideas is that the creature wasn't alone. Some audio analysts who have painstakingly cleaned up the background noise from the original film claim to hear faint, high-pitched whistling sounds and what sounds like baby talk or chattering. Furthermore, a few frames of the film, when stabilized and enhanced, seem to show a second, smaller figure in the trees for a split second. This has led to the theory that Patty wasn't just a lone creature, but a mother. Her calm, deliberate walk wasn't a sign of arrogance, but a calculated strategy. She was purposefully drawing the attention of the two strange intruders, Patterson and Gimlin, away from a hidden juvenile. Her famous look over the shoulder wasn't just curiosity, it was a threat assessment, a mother checking to make sure the danger was following her and not discovering her child. This idea completely reframes the encounter, turning it from a random sighting into the story of a protective parent safeguarding her young from a potential threat. But it gets even stranger. The thing nobody tells you is that Bluff Creek is located at the southern edge of the so-called Emerald Triangle. This region of Northern California is a hotbed of paranormal activity, UFO sightings, and an unusually high number of unexplained disappearances. For decades, people have vanished from this area without a trace. Some theorists don't think this is a coincidence. They propose that Bigfoot is not a biological creature in the way we understand it. Instead, they believe it could be an interdimensional being, something that can slip in and out of our reality. This would explain why, despite thousands of sightings, a body, a bone, or a definitive DNA sample has never been found. These creatures leave footprints. They are seen and heard, but they vanish as if they were never there because, in a sense, they weren't. They are like glitches in the Matrix, temporary visitors from a parallel world that occasionally intersects with our own. The Patterson-Gimlin film, in this view, didn't capture an ape. It captured a moment when the veil between worlds grew thin. What many overlooked is the sheer number of Native American legends that describe the Sasquatch in precisely these terms. Many tribes don't see Bigfoot as an animal at all. They see it as a spiritual being, a guardian of the forest who can appear and disappear at will, who can read minds, and who possesses supernatural abilities. They are often called the Hairy People or the Stick Indians, and they are treated with a mixture of profound respect and fear. These ancient traditions describe a creature that is far more than just an uncatalogued ape. They describe something that is intrinsically linked to the spiritual energy of the land, a concept that modern science has no way to measure or comprehend. Could it be that the creature in the film was a physical manifestation of this ancient forest spirit, annoyed at being caught on camera? The thought is unsettling, suggesting we are dealing with a form of intelligence we can't even begin to understand. With the hoax story debunked, all eyes turned back to the one man left standing, Gimlin's final word. After more than 50 years, Bob Gimlin is the last man standing. Roger Patterson has passed on. The most vocal debunkers have been largely discredited by inconsistencies in their own stories. The scientists continue to debate the pixels and possibilities, and through it all, Gimlin has remained the one constant, a quiet, unshakable pillar of the story. It's a funny thing when you think about it. He is the single human link to an event that has spawned an entire industry of books, television shows, and merchandise. Yet he has seen almost none of the financial rewards. He never got rich from the film. In fact, he famously sold his one-third share of the rights for a mere $10 just to distance himself from the chaos. He never sought the spotlight. For many years, he avoided it altogether, returning to his life as a rancher and horseman, a man more comfortable in the saddle than in front of a camera. He tried to escape the shadow of Bluff Creek, but the world wouldn't let him. The ridicule was constant. He was called a liar, a con man, and a fool. His family felt the sting of the accusations, yet he never, not once, changed his story. In over 5 decades of interviews under intense pressure from journalists, skeptics, and believers alike, his account of that day has remained perfectly, almost stubbornly, consistent. Think about it. Living with that kind of secret or that kind of lie for half a century would be an immense psychological burden. The mental gymnastics required to keep a story straight for that long, with every detail under a microscope, is staggering. Yet Gimlin has always spoken with a calm, straightforward honesty that many find impossible to fake. He speaks not with the flair of a showman, but with the quiet conviction of a man simply stating what he saw. He consistently describes the creature's powerful muscles rippling under its short, dark fur. He recalls its nonchalant, compliant gait. He remembers the look of disdain in its eyes with the clarity of a fresh memory. He stands by his friend Roger Patterson, acknowledging his flaws but defending his integrity regarding the film. He honored the promise he made to his dying friend, a vow that forced him to carry this heavy truth alone, even when it made his own life incredibly difficult. Today, Bob Gimlin is in his 90s. He knows he won't be around forever, and he says that before he goes, he needs the world to understand the truth. Not just the truth of the footage, but the truth of his experience. The thing is, he wasn't fooled by a man in a suit. He and Patterson were 36 miles deep in the wilderness. A hoax of that nature, with the technology of 1967, would have been nearly impossible to pull off. He maintains, with the same conviction he had from day one, that what he saw was a living, breathing creature, an animal unknown to science. His legacy is now forever intertwined with those 952 frames of film. He is the last living witness, a humble cowboy who rode into the woods one morning and came out with a story for the ages. Bob Gimlin's truth is out there. A lifetime of consistency against a world of doubt. Now you've heard the full story. Was it the greatest discovery or the greatest deception? Like and subscribe for more dives into the unknown.